Very warm welcome to this Concrete Dialogue 2021, jointly organised by the Concrete Initiative and the Parliament magazine, where we will be discussing the sustainable built environment from a societal perspective.
The construction and building sector has been identified in the European Green Deal and in the Circular Economy Action Plan as one of the key product value chains.
And it's society that is relevant here. I mean, in the end, we are businesses in the upstream sector, in the construction sector. We're all engaging on the path to decarbonization, but our end goal is to bring sustainable solutions to the citizen.
And what the challenge is going to be is to bring that down to earth and look and listen to citizens. And that's why I think bringing the societal perspective is so important here, because this is not about a fridge that we stick an energy label on. It's also about making the neighborhood a place where you can be proud to live in, a place where you can access green space, access services.
In a nutshell, a third of the climate change coming from Europe is coming from buildings.
We have to look at the full life cycle of a building. The circularity aspect really is important. We see how many very energy efficient buildings, they have to be used for 20, 30, 40 years before the carbon that you've put into them from the very beginning actually starts to be paid off. We call this the embodied carbons.
We are talking today about initiatives. Let's hear about some very significant projects that are contributing to addressing some of the challenges that you've been talking about.
A building with thermal concrete core activation, a geothermal storage underneath the building, heat pumps for heating and cooling, and renewable electricity to power those heat pumps. How to heat the buildings when no renewable energy is available, and it doesn't matter when the building is heated, because it can maintain its temperature for almost a week. Due to the concrete core activation, the whole building becomes rather sluggish thermal storage.
The objective of the Circle House was to demonstrate that you could reuse 90% of the materials without loss of the value, and that's both economical and in terms of emission and waste.
We identified some of the challenges, both from a consumer perspective and an industry perspective, in our discussion. I want to turn now in terms of what does this mean, and what does this mean in terms of policy? We know, of course, the Commission is planning a sustainable built environment strategy. And how do we make sure that we have a strategy that is doable, ambitious but doable, and also brings this consistency and coherence to it all?
The EU needs to look a little bit again at the financial side. Good work and good signals, but will the finance actually reach the projects? That is another question. It's something we're going to keep monitoring and getting feedback from the ground.
We cannot expect the house owner to start off with this. There are plenty of money, public money, going into these kinds of projects already, and they should be the first one to set the standard right. Public procurers should really step ahead first and do those things. And I believe that if they do it, if they start to demand certain things which enhances the possibility of circularity, of whole life carbon and all that stuff, and reduction of carbon emissions generally, these kinds of technologies which will be needed and ways of thinking, they will be cheaper.
But we have to focus on decarbonization. Life cycle assessment is a huge part of that. And I know we're going to talk about the new European Bauhaus. I think the new European Bauhaus will help us with the innovation and changes that we need to meet this challenge.
It's very important that we don't make this a fight between which materials we should use, because materials have different properties and different values, and we should use them the right way.
Encouraging designers, architects, engineers to think beyond the conventional. It was so refreshing to see the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen talk about a new European Bauhaus. I think today in 2021, we're somewhat humbled by the limits that are set to us by the planet, by the limits, the environmental and social limits that constrain us. And I think by working within that, using design expertise, we will find many of the solutions that we need to keep the temperature of the planet to a sustainable level.